Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Talk with Bill. If you're new to tech or transitioning from a non-technical background, this lesson is for you. And today we'll be discussing about conditional statements. And these are one of the most important concepts in this JavaScript full course, because this is where you code starts thinking and where you apply behavior. Before we begin, if you want structured real-world JavaScript lessons taught slowly and clearly, join as a channel member. Your support helps me keep creating in-depth contexts like this. And if you are completely new to ServiceNow, make sure you watch the personal developer instance setup tutorial linked at the end of this video so you can follow along safely. Now let us navigate to the script's background. Since this is a hands-on tutorial, I'd like you to follow along. Since coding, you only get to learn once you get your hands dirty. You can always move back to the recording, pause it to allow you to be able to copy the scripts and run it to your developer environment. And this is one of the examples of a conditional statement. So let's make it bigger for your visibility. So a conditional statement is simply a way to say, if something is true, do this. And if it's not true, do something else. You already use conditional statements on your daily life. If it rains, you bring an umbrella. If its traffic is heavy, then you leave early. If your phone battery is low, then you charge it. Coding or the machine language like JavaScript works the same way. A condition always results is either true or false. JavaScript checks the condition and decides which code to execute. The if statement runs only if the code condition is true. Where on this example, on line 2, we declare a variable named age, then JavaScript checks the condition inside the parentheses, which you see in line 5. If age is 18 or higher, the condition becomes true. When it is true, the message is basically printed. And if it is false, nothing happens. This is the simplest form of decision making in JavaScript. And I'd like you to run the script on your developer environment so you get to see and test the results yourself. Being a developer or a technical person, you don't believe in what you see. You normally test it and verify if it's working as you see expected. Now, on this next example, as a practice, you always want a fallback action. And that is where the else basically comes in. So in this second example, which is a pass or fail, JavaScript evaluates the condition once. If it is true, the if block basically happens or executes. If it is false, then the false block runs. So in this given technology, only one path will ever execute. So depending on your technical or business requirement, an if else may not be feasible for you since this is basically so linear. As you can see, it runs from top to bottom on its given evaluation. When you have more than two outcomes, you use else if. So this gives you the ability of a multi-conditional statements depending on the input from the form. So what you see here for simplicity, line 2 is the input. So this input statement will get evaluated according to your business rules. And when we say business rules, it can be applicable to any industry. It can be healthcare, hospitality, finance, and so on. And as you become an expert in a given industry, then you will be applying those rule set with the technologies that you're learning now. So in this example, JavaScript checks the conditions from top to bottom. The first condition that evaluates to true wins. Once a match is found, JavaScript stops checking. And I'd like you to take note of that, since the order of the implementation is very important and it also matters. If this explanation is making sense so far, I'd like you to join as a member to access deeper JavaScript lessons designed specifically for ServiceNow learners and career shifters. And now let us level up a little bit. And Conditions rely on comparison operators. You do not need to memorize everything yet. And I'd like you to focus on the meaning of what we're trying to articulate. On this example, we'll touch on strict equality, and I have another lesson which I have deep dive and have more examples, which you'll find at the end of the screen. So here we're combining the equality operator with conditional statements. Now, in this example, even though 10 or the input of like string of 10 looks like 10, it is actually a text. It checks the value and type. This prevents bugs and unexpected behavior. Depending on the situation, if you are working on somebody else's platform, like ServiceNow, the triple equals put you in a safe situation where you can evaluate the type and ensure correctness of the outcome. Now you can compare the outcome of the input. As you can see, as I highlight, it's already says it's string, and is it equal to 10? And as the JavaScript language evaluates your condition, it will print out respectively according to its behavior. Logical operators are to combine conditions. So let me give you this example where you basically combine the ampersand or using the ampersand sign. The AND operator or the ampersand operator means all conditions must be true. Even if one condition fails, then the code will not run. So as you basically have more conditions, so eventually we only have two, you may have 3 or 4, all of them should be met as a compliance perspective before it executes to a given business rule. And eventually, to make it simple, we are printing it in respect to our evaluation. Now, in this next example, the OR operator means at least one condition must be true. This is commonly used for access rules. We provide an admin role, so we have 2 evaluation of access. So it's either one of them is true, then line 10 will basically execute. Now, the next example is the NOT operator. The NOT operator basically inverts or flips the value where the false becomes true and true becomes false. As you basically add an exclamation point, and basically you are inverting the outcome of the evaluation. Sometimes one decision depends on another. So we call this as a nested if condition. We validate the big rule first, then we check more specific rules inside. This keeps logic clean and intentional. Now, I'd like you to take in mind this JavaScript best practices. Always use the triple equal sign. It will help you ensure the correctness of the type. In our example earlier, we showed you about the string, an integer, or you may be looking at an array object and so on. So the equality sign gives you the ability to evaluate your condition correctly. And always make sure that your code is readable by adding parenthesis sign or parentheses, and also adding comments helps your team and yourself remember what you're trying to execute. Avoid keep or doing nesting in your code. It impacts your performance and it's hard to read. And to be able to stay away from or resolve nesting loops is putting them into an object, implementing OOP principles, which I'll be sharing with you, which I touch upon that you'll find at the end of the screen. I will have a deeper lesson about OOP so you can apply the techniques of reusability, and software architecture. Naming convention is very important. Make sure it's meaningful and business type centric, implementing the purpose of your code. And as we deep dive later on about functionalities or functions or methods, you will apply solid principles or SRP or single responsibility principle, which is part of solid, where there will be one decision per condition. So the key takeaways: conditional statements control logic flow. The if, else if, and else define decision paths. Condition always resolve the true or false. Logical operators build real-world rules, while clean conditions lead to maintainable code. So in summary, conditional statements are where JavaScripts become intelligent. They allow you and your programs to react, adopt, and respond just like humans do. Once you master conditionals, you unlock validation logic, access rules, workflow decisions, and real application behavior. If you want more lessons like this, join as a channel member and do not forget to watch the ServiceNow PDI or your developer environment setup tutorial link at the end of this video. Thanks for learning with me. I'll see you on the next video.